Most people think attraction is shown through big actions, but the truth is, it's often exposed in something as small as a simple hello. Because the way a man greets you can reveal something he will never directly say out loud, how strongly he is actually drawn to you. Have you ever noticed someone greeting you in a way that felt different? Not louder, not obvious, just strangely focused, a little longer, a little warmer, almost like time slowed down for a second. If yes, you already experienced what most people completely miss. And if you stay with this, you will start seeing signals in the first few seconds that most people ignore for years.
Most women don't fully realize this, but the very first 5 seconds of how a man greets you can reveal more about his true feelings than even a full hour of conversation ever could. His tone of voice, the way his eyes react the moment they see you, the slight tightness or ease in his shoulders, and even how he says your name all come together as small but powerful signals that quietly expose how he genuinely feels about you. When a man is truly attracted to you, he does not just casually say hey in a flat or ordinary way. Instead, something changes instantly inside him. His energy shifts, his expression becomes softer, and there is a subtle urgency in his presence, almost like he has been waiting for this moment for a long time, and now that you are here, everything suddenly feels more complete and right in his world. But here is something very important that most people completely miss. Not every man is confident or comfortable enough to openly express what he is feeling inside. That is exactly why his greeting becomes such an important thing to observe. Those first few seconds carry something raw and unfiltered. Before he starts controlling his behavior, before he puts on a social mask, and before he begins acting more careful or composed about how he appears. If you have ever walked away from a conversation feeling unsure and thinking, did that actually mean something or was it nothing at all, then this is exactly what you need to understand deeply. Because once you learn how to read these small and subtle signals, you stop guessing and overthinking, and instead you start seeing clear patterns that were always there in front of you but unnoticed. Men, especially in the early stages of attraction, do not usually express directly what they feel. It is not always because they are hiding it on purpose, but more because putting emotions into words is not always something that comes naturally to them. For many men, showing vulnerability feels uncomfortable or even risky, especially when they are not sure how it will be received. So instead of clearly saying something like, I like you, or I am really into you, they often communicate it indirectly through behavior, timing, energy shifts, and subtle changes in physical presence. Psychologically speaking, attraction in men is more often revealed through actions rather than spoken explanation, and that is why the greeting moment becomes one of the most honest and unplanned places where their real feelings can slip through. To understand this more deeply, you need to look at what is actually happening inside a man at that moment. When a man feels attraction, his brain chemistry begins to change. Dopamine increases, which is the chemical linked with pleasure, reward, and motivation. This sudden chemical shift creates a subtle emotional activation that shows up physically in different ways. His heartbeat may slightly increase, his attention becomes sharper, and his focus narrows toward you without effort. Without even realizing it, he may lean in slightly, adjust his posture, or change the tone of his voice. These are not planned actions, they are automatic responses. His body reacts before his conscious mind has fully decided how to behave, and that is where truth begins to show itself most clearly. In many cases, a man will also try to appear more controlled or confident than he actually feels. He may straighten his posture, deepen his voice slightly, or try to maintain a calm and composed expression. At the same time, small signs of nervous energy may appear, like adjusting his clothes, fidgeting with his hands, or briefly breaking eye contact before looking again. This mix of confidence and nervousness is actually one of the strongest indicators of attraction. It shows that he is trying to present his best version while also being emotionally affected by your presence in a way he cannot fully regulate. That internal conflict is often what makes his behavior so revealing in those first seconds. Another very important factor is emotional safety. A man is much more likely to show his genuine interest when he feels he will not be judged, rejected, or shut down immediately. If he senses warmth, calmness, and emotional openness from you, his defenses naturally begin to lower. In that moment, even his greeting becomes more relaxed and authentic. He may smile more naturally, speak more softly, or take a brief pause before responding. This is not hesitation in a negative sense, but rather a moment where his emotional guard lowers just enough for his real feelings to slip through without resistance. One of the most overlooked indicators of attraction is memory. If a man greets you and brings up something you mentioned earlier, even a small detail, it is never random. It shows that your presence has stayed in his mind. He remembers because your words mattered enough for his brain to store them. This is not just attention, it is selective focus, and selective focus is often a quiet form of emotional attachment. When someone consistently remembers small things about you, it shows that you are not just passing through his thoughts, you are staying in them longer than ordinary interactions would allow. However, not all attraction appears confident or smooth. Some men become noticeably awkward around the women they are most interested in. Their greeting might seem rushed, overly casual, or slightly disconnected, but underneath that surface behavior, there is often overthinking rather than disinterest. He may be trying too hard not to make a mistake, which ironically makes him appear less natural. Instead of looking smooth and relaxed, he appears uncertain or slightly distant. This is where misunderstandings often happen, because what looks like low interest can sometimes be strong interest expressed in a nervous or unbalanced way. In reality, male attraction is rarely loud or obvious in its early stages. It is layered, subtle, and often inconsistent. It can show up in a small smile that lasts a second longer than usual, a delayed goodbye that feels unnecessary, or the way he naturally creates space for you in a crowded environment. His greeting is not just a polite social habit, it is an emotional leak. It is the moment where his internal emotional state briefly becomes visible on the outside, before he regains control and returns to his usual behavior pattern. They say the eyes are the window to the soul, and when it comes to attraction, this becomes extremely accurate. Before a man even speaks, his eyes often reveal what he is feeling inside. When he sees someone he is drawn to, there is usually a noticeable shift in his gaze. It is not always dramatic, but it is consistent. His pupils may slightly widen due to natural emotional arousal, and his attention becomes more fixed. Instead of scanning randomly around the room, his focus settles more directly on you, as if everything else around him becomes less important in that exact moment. There is also a clear difference between a passing glance and a focused look. A passing glance is quick and forgettable, but a focused look carries intention. If a man pauses even briefly when he sees you, or if his eyes linger slightly before he speaks, it suggests an emotional reaction before words even begin. He is not just identifying you visually, he is responding to your presence. That short pause often happens before language, before logic, and before social control takes over, making it one of the most honest signals of attraction. When a man is emotionally engaged, his eye contact also changes in quality. Instead of being distracted or shallow, his gaze becomes more stable and present. It feels like he is actually there with you in that moment, not mentally somewhere else. He may hold eye contact a little longer or look at you in a way that feels more attentive than normal. This does not mean constant staring, but rather meaningful moments of visual connection that feel intentional and emotionally aware. On the other hand, if his eyes constantly move away, scan the surroundings, or avoid eye contact entirely, it may suggest emotional distance or discomfort. But even this needs proper context, because sometimes avoidance is not lack of interest but nervousness. Some men struggle with direct eye contact when they feel strong attraction, which creates a pattern of looking away and then looking back again. That push and pull often reflects internal conflict between desire and anxiety at the same time. What truly matters is the quality of attention in his gaze. A man who is genuinely interested often looks at you in a way that feels different from others. It is softer, more grounded, and more emotionally present. It is not just visual focus, it feels like recognition. as if in that moment you are not just another person in the room but the center of his attention without him needing to say anything at all. His voice follows the same pattern of subtle change. When a man is attracted, his tone often shifts without conscious effort. It may become softer, more controlled, or slightly warmer. Sometimes his speech becomes faster due to excitement or nervous energy. Other times he slows down, making his tone more deliberate and intimate. These variations are small but consistent, and they often reveal emotional activation beneath the surface of normal communication. You may also notice small disruptions in his speaking pattern, a brief pause before saying your name, a slight hesitation, or a moment where he seems to gather his thoughts before speaking. These micropauses happen when emotion interrupts normal speech flow. It is the mind catching up with feeling. In that tiny gap you are seeing the real reaction before it becomes structured communication. Volume can also shift in different directions. Some men unconsciously raise their voice slightly when they are trying to gain attention, while others lower it to create a sense of closeness and intimacy. Both are emotional signals. One is about being noticed, the other is about creating connection. Neither is random, both come from internal emotional responses triggered by your presence. Even laughter changes. It may become slightly more frequent, a little nervous, or more reactive than usual. Attraction often disrupts normal communication rhythm, making even simple reactions less controlled and more expressive. A man who is usually calm may become less polished in speech when he is around someone he likes, and that loss of control is often where authenticity appears most clearly. And when he says your name, pay attention to how it sounds. If it feels softer, more intentional, or more personal than how he speaks to others, it carries meaning. A name in that moment is not just a word, it becomes a point of emotional connection. The way he says it can reveal how much weight your presence holds in his mind without him needing to explain anything. But beyond words and voice, the body always reveals the final truth. A man may try to look calm or indifferent, but his body often reacts before his mind can control it. The way he stands, the direction of his feet, and the angle of his torso all show attention. If his body naturally turns toward you, it is a sign of focus. If he adjusts his posture when you arrive, it is a sign of awareness. These are not planned behaviors, they are instinctive responses. Even physical distance becomes meaningful in subtle ways. A man who is interested often reduces distance without noticing, or positions himself so that you remain within his visual or physical space. He may stand slightly closer or angle himself in a way that keeps you in his line of sight. These small movements are not random, they are physical expressions of emotional attention that happen before conscious thought begins to interfere. His chest may slightly expand, almost like his body naturally wants to appear more open, confident, and strong in front of you. His shoulders also tend to square toward you instead of turning away. It is not something he consciously plans, it just happens. This is the body's instinctive way of communicating presence, as if saying, I am here, I see you, I am steady, I am safe. Before words even begin, the body often speaks first, and this posture shift is one of the clearest early signals that something inside him has changed the moment you appear. Now let's talk about energy, because this is where things become even more interesting. Every person carries an emotional frequency, something invisible but deeply felt. When a man is genuinely into you, you will often feel his energy even before he speaks a single word. It can feel like a subtle pull, a kind of magnetic awareness that draws your attention toward him. You may notice he leans in slightly, steps a bit closer, or finds natural reasons to reduce the physical distance between you. Sometimes he even mirrors your movements or matches your rhythm without realizing it. In psychology, this is known as mirroring, and it is often linked with emotional connection, comfort, and unconscious alignment. Along with this, there is often a noticeable level of fidgeting. A man who is attracted to you may suddenly become more aware of his own body. He might adjust his shirt, fix his sleeves, run a hand through his hair, or subtly check how he is standing. These are not random habits in that moment. They are signs of heightened self-awareness triggered by attraction. Importantly, he is not doing this for everyone around him. It is specifically in your presence. His focus shifts inward and outward at the same time, trying to present himself well while also processing the emotional effect you are having on him. One of the more subtle but very revealing signs is what we can call touch readiness. This does not mean inappropriate behavior at all. It is about comfort with proximity and gentle, respectful contact. Notice how he greets you physically. Does he give a warm, full hug that lasts just a second longer than usual, or is it a quick, distant, half-turn side hug? Does he lightly touch your shoulder, arm, or back when saying hello or goodbye? These small gestures often communicate more than words. They show comfort, emotional ease, and a desire for connection that goes beyond casual interaction. When a man greets you with relaxed and respectful physical warmth, it often reflects a deeper level of emotional openness toward you. And then there is the smile, which is one of the most powerful indicators of all. Not the polite, automatic smile he gives everyone, but the kind that reaches his eyes and softens his entire face. It lingers just a little longer than necessary, almost like he cannot help it. That smile carries meaning. It is not rehearsed or forced. It is instinctive. It often says things like, "I am happy you are here," or "I was actually looking forward to this moment." That kind of smile is very difficult to fake because it is tied to genuine emotional response rather than social obligation. So whenever you feel uncertain, instead of overanalyzing his words, look at his body language. Watch his posture, his closeness, his subtle movements, and the way he naturally reacts when you enter a space. His body often reveals what his mouth is not ready to say yet. And once you start understanding this silent language, you stop doubting and start recognizing patterns clearly. What once felt confusing begins to make sense without effort. Even in written messages, these patterns continue. Emojis, punctuation, timing, and small personal touches often carry emotional weight. A simple "hey you" can sometimes feel more meaningful than a long paragraph because of the feeling behind it. If he responds quickly, it often shows that you were already on his mind. If he initiates first, it suggests intention rather than obligation. His communication style becomes less about routine and more about connection. When a man is emotionally unavailable or not interested, his greetings tend to stay flat, predictable, and general. But when he is invested, even his simplest greeting carries a sense of presence and meaning. You start to feel that he is not just speaking out of habit, but out of genuine desire to connect with you. That shift is subtle, but once you notice it, it becomes very clear. In the end, what you realize is simple. A man's true feelings are often not hidden in big actions or dramatic words, but in the smallest and most natural moments, especially how he greets you. The first few seconds, the way he looks at you, the tone of his voice, and the way his body reacts can all reveal more than long conversations ever could. When someone is genuinely interested, it shows naturally through warmth, attention, and consistency, not confusion or mixed signals. But the most important thing to understand is this: you don't need to overthink or force meaning into every interaction. Real interest feels calm, clear, and steady over time. It does not create constant doubt or emotional stress. When someone values you, it becomes visible in simple, respectful, and consistent behavior. So instead of chasing answers, focus on awareness. Observe, stay grounded, and trust what is consistent rather than what is uncertain. Because when something is real, you don't have to decode it endlessly. You feel it clearly, and it naturally makes sense without effort.